Roll call, Ms. Williams.
Dr. Banyas?
Here.
Mr. DiTullio?
Here.
Mr. Sundo?
Here.
Mr. Kashani? Ms. Dawson? Here. Ms. Goebel? Ms. Johnston?
Here.
Mr. Lyons?
Here.
Mr. Stegman?
Here.
Thank you.
My name is Scott Gagliardi, Richland Township, on Meridian Road. Being a resident of Pine-Richland is like living in the Twilight Zone these days. But unfortunately, this isn't just a fictional story, though many people are having trouble believing it actually is true. Pine-Richland's Twilight Zone is the following. It is a place where it appears someone has removed administrators and replaced them with activists. A place where superintendents enact seismic policy changes without notifying the community, the parents, the students, or even his own staff. A place where seismic policy change is not even written down. It exists in his mind only, apparently. A place where parental rights are willfully and intentionally denied by these secretive procedures. A place where locker rooms might say girls, but biological boys are given 100% access to the girls' facility if they identify as a girl. A place where the above action is rationalized based on a letter written by political activists within an agency in the executive branch and is contrary to clear case law involving federal rulings in our district. This year, I would ask our solicitor to remind the board that in every federal court case ever addressing the bathroom issue, it is held in favor of the schools that stand by their common sense bathroom practices that protect privacy based solely on biological sex. It is a place where the administration tells you that a single unisex bathroom is not considered an adequate accommodation for a transgender student. However, this same single stall bathroom is considered to be accommodating for my daughters and the 16 other students and their parents that may object to members of the opposite sex being placed in these intimate settings. It is a place where girls who wish to have privacy from biological males in the restroom designated for girls when changing clothes, showering, or using the bathrooms are denied that right. They are instead forced to use one of only a few unisex single-user restrooms. But biological males get 100% access to the boys' facility, the girls' facility, and any unisex facility, simply because they identify themselves as the opposite sex. That's 3 options for one group of children, but only one for the other. Finally, it is a place where the district has hid the truth and the facts from their residents. The people they have the honor of serving, so great is their failure to represent their constituents. I would remind the board that the primary issue raised during the premature removal of our last superintendent was trust. I would consider the covert and underhanded manner in which this seismic policy change was enacted by Mr. Miller to be the ultimate violation of trust of the parents of this district, as well as this board, and would expect the current supervisor be held to the same standard as the last supervisor by this board. If you're unsure of legal issues, or even if you, like the superintendent, think that girls who feel uncomfortable changing with biological boys should just get over it or find somewhere else to change, this absolutely must be a board decision. This was never an unelected administrator's decision to make in the first place. The board needs to restore that expectation of bodily privacy that is so important in bathrooms, locker rooms, and showers. And you must do that tonight before any further discussions are done on this matter. Then I urge you to pass at a later date, after discussions with all parties are concluded, a written policy that protects the rights and dignity of all students by providing the space for privacy among boys and girls in those instances where between the biological sexes is relevant, such as bathrooms, showers, restrooms, overnight accommodations on trips. To give you an idea of how inappropriate this administration's position is in this point, the courts have ruled that even convicted felons have the right to not be seen by guards of the opposite biological sex in bathrooms and locker rooms within the prison system. Yet our children, most of them minors, are denied the most basic right under this administration's current policy. One final point to consider. Because the use of the facilities is based solely on gender identity, this current policy leaves the door open for some faculty identifying as the opposite sex to also enter any restroom, locker room, and shower area. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is David Keener. I live in Gibsonia. I have 3 children that go to Pine-Richland, one in high school, one in middle school, and the other in elementary. All 3 of my kids, as well as myself and my wife, were shocked to learn about this new policy that was apparently established and communicated without any notice or involvement to or with the parents. Pine-Richland does a great job of communicating news, events, activities via email on a very routine basis. In fact, as of this morning, I counted almost 300 emails in just the past 12 months, covering a wide range of items, anything from report card availability to grant opportunities, talent show results, updates to commercial advertising guidelines on school property, and many other changes to policies and guidelines. As a parent, I truly appreciate the efforts you all go through to keep us informed of what's going on, especially in these locations that, quite frankly, will represent where our kids will spend the majority of their adolescent lives. However, I heard nothing of this new policy, and it is a new policy that is not covered anywhere in writing, no matter how you try and spin it. Until the one day when one of my kids come home talking about a rumor that their school was going to force them to shower, change, and use restrooms with individuals of the opposite biological sex. I find it alarming and inconsiderate that the school system would implement and communicate something of this level to the students as if it were the policy all along, and not include the parents in this matter until later. We were all raised with the understanding that the signs on those doors to the restrooms and other facilities imply that there is a certain level of trust and privacy every time we use them, anywhere we're at. That when we go into them, that members of the opposite biological sex will not be present. Is that no longer the case at Pine-Richland? And are those signs no longer valid? The same logic and expectation is there when our kids are on school-sponsored trips that involve hotels for overnight stays. I do not believe that students should be sharing hotel rooms with members of the opposite biological sex. However, how is this scenario any different than the locker room? I agree that all students, absolutely 100%, are entitled to the same rights to privacy and dignity. However, I do not believe that it should be done by infringing upon the rights of anyone else. I'm proud to be a parent of the students at Pine-Richland that are our kids, but the trust between this school system and the students and a lot of other parents has absolutely been damaged. Fortunately, this can be easily mitigated, and I too think that this can be rectified by immediate correction and clarification of the current and understood rules, and then by establishment of formal policy that is created with the parents of your students. A policy that reestablishes the expectations for privacy that we recently held until 10 days ago, as well as accommodations for any other students within the school district. Thank you.
Dr. Banyas, school board, administration, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Eric Fabian. I'm a single parent of 4 teenagers, 3 of which are currently attending Pine-Richland School District. Rowan Williams, the Archbishop of Canterbury, once said, "Bad human communication leaves us less room to grow." So I would ask, how much more so no human communication? I mean, we live in a world where we literally can communicate with anybody on this globe within minutes. I mean, we all have kids. We know how they're on the internet. Communication's pretty easy. As a Pine-Richland parent, I frequently receive communications from Rachel Hathorn regarding school delays, a late bus. That's great. Yet, when the Pine-Richland administration redefines the expectations of privacy for all of their students, I don't hear a word. How is that possible? did that subject not rise to the level of a school delay or a weather threat? I've read your letter to the parents of pine-richland students when you finally decided to communicate on this issue, and it's my opinion that this letter was written to actually muddy the waters and continue an effort to hide things from the parents of this district. Several parents actually thought, after reading the letter, that you had reinstated the biological meaning of the words girls and boys on the locker rooms and bathroom doors. They thought that a policy was established where students could reasonably expect to have privacy from the opposite biological sex in bathrooms and locker rooms, but we know now that the opposite is actually true. Even the announcements at school had to be repeated because of the failure of this administration to simply state clearly what they had done. I personally heard a recording of the second announcement clarifying the first announcement, and it confused me. This administration secretively permitted students to use locker rooms and restrooms of the opposite biological sex, and they purposefully kept this information from parents. A federal court has held that shielding your unclothed figure from the view of those of the opposite sex is impelled by elementary self-respect and personal dignity. Yet this administration has violated that elementary concept of self-respect and personal dignity. I ask that you protect all students' rights to the restroom that correspond to their biological sex and maintain the expectation of privacy in those few instances where biological sex is all that matters, in restrooms, locker rooms, and showers. If a student feels uncomfortable with those same-sex biological students, they should be provided an accommodation, without doubt. They have the right to feel safe and comfortable as well. If your decision was due to bullying or harassment, you should have stopped the bullying and harassment. But you don't solve this problem by allowing someone to change with members of the opposite biological sex. You actually create new issues, and you violate the rights of others in doing so. Every child has a right to privacy. Every child. And I would implore to you that the covering your ears, covering your mouth, covering your eyes, that's not working. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mark Avalone. I'm a resident of Pine Township. Dr. Benyus, thank you for your opening comments. I appreciate you addressing the issue head on. I respectfully disagree with some of your conclusions. I'm here tonight because I object to the violation and disregard of students' right to bodily privacy and the safety that has occurred at our school. I also object to a school administration that adopts an unwritten policy of this magnitude without informing the board, the parents, or the students. In the past, our minor children expected to have privacy from the opposite biological sex when showering, changing, or using the bathroom. The signs on the doors still say boys and girls, and they have not changed. But you've secretly allowed biological boys to use the girls' facilities. The superintendent and the principal have done nothing less than redefine the expectation of bodily privacy for our students. They changed this without telling you, the board, or even us parents or the students. The board needs to restore that expectation of bodily privacy by voting tonight to roll back that improperly adopted current practice. Next, I urge you to recognize that we can and do respect the rights of everyone in our school, and we can continue to do so without taking the privacy rights of anyone. All biological males, without exception, should have 100% access to the boys' locker rooms and bathrooms without fear of bullying or harassment. If a child feels uncomfortable using the facility because of bullying or harassment, then it is the administration's job to stop that from occurring. If a child still feels uncomfortable changing around people of the same biological sex, for any other reason, then we absolutely should accommodate them the same way we provide accommodations for students with unique religious or disability needs. We can do this by providing sufficient unisex user bathrooms, which I believe the school has just added more of, so I thank you. We must continue to respect the dignity of all people by providing separate space for girls and boys in those few instances when privacy between the biological sexes is relevant, such as in restrooms, showers, and locker rooms. In fact, biological sex is all that matters when it comes to privacy in locker rooms, bathrooms, and showers. If biological sex does not matter, then there's no other logical reason to have separate facilities at all, and we should only have one locker room. This administration has empowered biological males to shower and change with biological females and vice versa. This action subjects the school and the taxpayers to liability and subjects the students to emotional distress. This administration has mixed biological sexes in locker rooms, showers, and bathrooms without telling the board, the parents, or the students. This is not only an egregious violation of parents' and students' rights, but a violation of the board's authority. Once again, the board has an opportunity tonight to roll this back. Finally, I know that some of you may be worried about getting letters from outside activist organizations threatening you. This community will be behind you if you stand up for our children's bodily privacy. Maintaining the privacy and safety of our minor students in restrooms and locker rooms is not mutually exclusive with respecting kids who identify with a different gender than their biological sex. We can do both. Every federal court who has addressed the bathroom question has found in favor of the has found in favor of the school's right to maintain restrooms based on biological sex, including a federal court in Western Pennsylvania. Please do not be afraid to stand up for what is right. This community will support you. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Christina Avalone, and I live in Pine Township. When we were relocating here from the Philly area, we had to decide which school district would be best for our two daughters. And we chose pine-richland. And we relocated here in 2005. And I've been happy with the school and with the school board decisions until now. Recently, my daughter came home from school and said, "You'll not believe who was in the girls' bathroom today." To my surprise, and obviously hers, for telling me the story, and to paraphrase her answer, she said a biological boy who now presents himself as a girl. We were extremely concerned, as my daughter and I believe the word woman or girls on the locker door meant we could expect privacy from those of the opposite biological sex. So I followed up with a call to the administration and was told they were following the footsteps of a Chicago school that decided to permit biological boys into the girls' locker rooms if they identified as a girl. My immediate reaction was shock and astonishment. Pine-Richland had violated my trust, my daughter's trust, my right to direct the upbringing of my children, and the bodily privacy rights of my children. But more than that, they did so secretly. They determined that my daughter's reasonable expectation of bodily privacy in locker rooms and showers was meaningless. That they could simply redefine the word woman on the locker room door, open the doors to biological males, and not even tell the students of that drastic change in what expectation of privacy now that existed. I'm not a lawyer. I took the administration's legal claim at face value and searched for ways to protect my daughter's privacy. But then I found out that every federal court that addresses the question has found that schools are permitted under federal laws to maintain bathrooms on the basis of biological sex. This includes a federal court, as my husband stated, in Western Pennsylvania. Here, where we sit. To top it off, the Chicago school had simply agreed to permit biological boys that identify as a girl to use whatever locker room they want without having a court address that matter. Then I found out that Pine-Richland, you, the school board, had no idea about the policy either. This board must reverse the superintendent's breach of the public's trust tonight. This board must and can respect the dignity of all people, whether they identify with their biological sex or not. Kids who feel they identify more with the opposite biological sex than their own should be treated with kindness and respect. This does not require eliminating the right to bodily privacy, though, for any of the students. We all know that our expectations of bodily privacy is different depending on where you are. It's different at my home than at the beach, where I assume members of both sexes will see me and I will see them. However, in restrooms and locker rooms, showers, hotel rooms, on school trips, biological sex and our expectation of bodily privacy from the opposite biological sex is all that matters. As a mom of daughters, the thought of them showering, changing clothes, and other vulnerable moments in the bathrooms with biological males outrages me. Our children, minors, should not be exposed to seeing the opposite sex anatomy in our schools' restrooms and locker rooms. That is outrageous. Why are we allowing it, is what I ask myself. In order to respect the bodily privacy of everyone, you, the Pine-Richland School Board, have the right to reverse that tonight. There is no law that requires Pine-Richland to ban biologically distinct restrooms and locker rooms. Why this right was taken away without the school board, parental and student knowledge, demonstrates a severe lack of regard for the board. For we here as parents and the students of this district. However, this can be reversed tonight. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Joe Casario. I live in Pine Township. Dr. Banyas, I want to thank you for your opening comment. And I just want to reiterate that if I was a parent of a transgender child, I would love them and I would do everything I possibly could to make sure that they felt safe, secure, wherever they were. But what we have to realize is that, as you said, that some of these people that are struggling with some issues are the most at risk. I'm sitting in my chair thinking, they're all at risk. Teenage years are the most dangerous time for all of our children. And I would hate to be struggling with something as huge as what a transgender child is struggling with. But we all have children here, and we know what our children are struggling with every day. And just because they don't have a problem with identifying with the biologic sex they are, that doesn't mean they're not at risk. You put my daughter in a restroom put my 14-year-old daughter in a high school restroom with an 18-year-old biologic male, that's a risk. That's a problem. There's a lot of studies that show that when plane crashes, there's so much noise, there's so much going on, there's just turbulence and uproar and upheaval. Probably what the board has been experiencing, because this did come down on us, and I can't believe how this came about. So I would have only imagined that what you have all been hearing has just been amazing since this came out, not for the good. But in these studies, it showed that sometimes the simplest thing is what needed to be done. Pull back on the yoke. No, you are going down. You got to level out. You got to just do the simple thing. Get your breath back to you and do the simple thing. That's what I think the board should do here. I want every transgender child to feel safe in our school district, but I want everyone to feel safe, and my daughters will not feel safe in the school district if they have to share a restroom with somebody who is not of the same biologic sex. So do what you would do if the plane is crashing. Keep it simple. Do something simple. Give the transgender children their own unisex bathroom. Let them have their bathroom. Let all the biologically sex children that feel that they are what they are and they are of the biological sex that they feel that they are, keep the bathrooms the way they are and let the transgender children have a safe place to go where they can go and not have to worry about being harassed, being looked at, being talked about. It's the simple solution to a very complicated problem. When I have been thinking about this, I try to put myself in your position. And I know you, Dr. Banyas. I know you're a very thoughtful person, and you're a great, great guy. And I just start chasing my tail when I start thinking about it, because this leads to that, and that leads to this. And then the unintended consequences come in, and then, oh boy, it really hits. So I say keep it simple. Let them have their own bathroom. Keep everything the way it is. Because what I find interesting too, and I'll stop, is that if you probably asked most of these people 2 years ago, hey, how many transgender children do you know? I bet a lot of us would say, nah, I'm not sure what you're talking about. Now my children come home and they tell me, oh, you know, this person's this, and my wife and I'll say, well, you know, just they're struggling with something that's big. Just see what you can do to support them. See what you can do to help. See what you can do to be there. We've gone from not even really knowing what this is to trying to teach our children a lesson to be good people. Help them. They're struggling. It's a big issue. Don't make it a problem for everybody. Thank you.
My name is Mike Weethorn, and I live in Richland Township. So I too got the email from Mr. Miller, and I too find it to be very confusing and had to read it several times to try and digest what was really being said. So let me offer some clarity. The school administration has been permitting biological boys who identify as girls to use any facilities they want, including those marked boys, the facilities marked girls, as well as the recently adopted third option of designated unisex restrooms. That's what should be in your letter, with that precision and that clarity. In other words, some students get to use every single restroom available to the students at the school. On the other hand, the children and parents that expect to have their rights to bodily privacy in restrooms and locker rooms respected were not even told their privacy expectations had been eliminated. It's simply not true that to be respectful to a person who identifies with the opposite biological sex that we must eliminate the reasonable expectations of privacy by having the opposite biological sexes present in the restrooms or locker rooms. We can and should respect everyone without taking away privacy rights from anyone. Undoubtedly, you're being solicited by interests outside this community who believe the biological sex is irrelevant and want to impose that belief on other people. The threats from these organizations are baseless. Biological sex is the only relevant reason to have separate restrooms, and Pennsylvania state law and federal law is clear on that issue. Pennsylvania Code Title 22, Section 57.2 specifically mandates, I quote, "There shall be separate restroom facilities for boys and girls," end quote. As used in the Pennsylvania Code, this is clearly referring to biology. Title IX of the federal law explicitly states that schools can, quote, "separate toilet, locker rooms, and shower facilities on the basis of sex," end quote. If there was any confusion on this matter, the federal court in the Western District of Pennsylvania in the summer of 2015 held that the word sex, when referring to the restroom context, is referring to biological boys and girls. As such, it does not violate Title IX or the Constitution to maintain biologically distinct restrooms. I'm sure that you're concerned about Title IX funding for the school district. I'm also sure that the solicitor, Pat Clare, has made you aware of a non-binding memorandum from the Office of Civil Rights, which is being used as the basis for arguments that biological boys who identify as girls must be permitted to use facilities that were previously for the exclusive use of biological girls and vice versa. To date, in both cases which have considered this memorandum, federal courts in Pennsylvania and Virginia have rejected the position of the Office of Civil Rights. Every restroom case in the Third Circuit, the Fourth Circuit, and the 10th Circuit have consistently ruled that restrooms can be separately maintained based upon biological sex. You as a board have the right to challenge any non-binding opinion of the Office of Civil Rights while keeping the Title IX funding in place for the district. Even if the school district were to lose in an administrative proceeding, the Title IX funding would remain uninterrupted as long as there was compliance with a final court order within 30 days. Protecting all of our children's civil rights is worthy of challenging the Office of Civil Rights. With respect to the new unisex restrooms, if this board decides to let the administration mix the biological sexes in restrooms, then it is imperative that this board immediately send a letter to every parent in the district asking them to opt into permitting their daughter or son to use locker rooms, showers, and restrooms with members of the opposite biological sex. That is the only way to ensure nobody's expectations of privacy are violated and the state law is not violated. This process is necessary so it can be definitively determined if the current circumstances with the six unisex restrooms meet Pennsylvania Code Section 22, Section 57.2, which provides that there shall be one flush toilet for every 20 girls, one flush toilet and 2 urinals for every 40 boys. Right now, you don't know whether the steps that you have taken are sufficient to comply with Pennsylvania Code. Will the board require the administration to send such a letter and release the number of students whose parents opt into permitting their daughter or son to use locker rooms, showers, and restrooms with members of the opposite biological sex? Release this information to the public so that everyone in the district knows that the school district has provided the necessary facilities to meet Pennsylvania law. Will this board do that? Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Wendy Masick. I spoke at the last meeting, and briefly I just want to say a couple comments. My children are very small, and we hope to stay in the school district for quite a long time. This decision, made on no basis, has given us a lot of food for thought lately, as I'm sure a lot of other parents in the area. Again, Pine-Richland School District has the best reputation in the area. That's why we wanted to live here, because we knew eventually we would have children that go here. You've created a lot of confusion regarding minors. You've created co-ed situations in little children who can't process what's going on. If you don't stop this train, it's madness. You need to take a vote, and you need to stop it and get out in front of it. We are not a group of vigilantes. I respect what you say, Doctor, at the beginning of the meeting, but I kind of felt like we were being put to the side with our thoughts and our minor children. Anyone's a minor under 18. Parents still have some say in that, as far as I know. I try to keep this out of my home. It comes in on the television. I try to teach my children what's right and what's wrong, and to treat everybody kindly and with respect as we embark on these new terms that are thrown at us one way or the other, whether we like it or not. So we are in a state of confusion. Our children, the parents, we're not asking for much. We're asking for consideration, which is a lot to us, but may not be much to you. A lot of your things are done without thought. We ask our children to do the right thing and to think about what they're doing every day, sometimes 50 times a day. But you have to ask yourself, am I doing the right thing for everyone involved? What is wrong with having a boys' room, a girls' room, and a unisex room? I feel for these children, as I think anybody feels for these children that are struggling with their identity. It's a horrible thing, I'm sure, to have to face and to feel different, and that you know you're different. But so is a handicapped person. I have rheumatoid arthritis. I feel different every day. I'm a mother of a 2-year-old. That makes me feel like I can't do everything a mother of a 2-year-old could do with the illness that I have. But I go on every day, and so will these children. And we're not saying that they should be treated any differently than what we do with our little girls. You're a boy, you go to the boys' room. You're a girl, you go to the girls' room. If you don't know, maybe you go to the unisex room. I don't think there's anything wrong with asking that that clarification be made. So I ask, stop the madness. Let's hear, what the parents have to say, and I don't think there's anything wrong with soliciting for comment to put a letter out there that's not clear as mud, because that's exactly what the letter was that came out. I received a phone call from Brian Miller a morning. I was trying to get my kids ready for school, telling me that my comments were heard at the first meeting and that I would receive a communication shortly thereafter. I didn't realize it was going to be that communication, so I kind of felt like I was heard, but not really heard, because it felt like that letter had been waiting and somebody was just ready to send it out without thinking the confusion that they were causing at that point. Because a lot of people do think, oh, well, they took care of it. But as you read it 5 or 6 times, you realize that that's not the case. So again, I implore you, do the right thing. What would you do for everyone involved? Stop this, reverse it until you can get some real facts. Thank you.
My name is Emily Willard, and I live in Richland Township. I have 2 sons. One has graduated from Pine-Richland, and the other is a senior this year, preparing to graduate. We have been a Pine-Richland family since 1998, and it has been a total blast. We thank you for accepting a position on the Pine-Richland School Board, as we are grateful for all that you do, helping to make our district truly a beacon of light in the Pittsburgh area. This is my second time to speak in front of the school board regarding this privacy of the bathrooms, as I, along with several other parents, spoke just a few weeks ago, and here we are again. We're sharing our concerns for our children's privacy. This is such a slippery slope for Pine-Richland to go down, as once we open the door to not protecting our children the way a public school needs to, we will spiral downward at a pace that will be unstoppable. As a mom and an educator, I feel this topic that I'm addressing tonight needs to continue to be communicated to the Pine-Richland families. We need to know that something as big as this is made clearly aware to the parents. I was completely unaware and confused, and all I could think about were the children in this high school, 15 to 18 years old, who take on decisions that adults make for them, and how very confusing this must be to these children, as I was so very confused myself. Yes, we want to be respectful and sensitive to all of the children at the high school, whatever the need is. Privacy is a civil right, and there is no law that requires this school to ban biologically distinctive restrooms, showers, and locker rooms. So I am asking that this policy be removed and that the dignity and protection of the children in the Pine-Richland High School have the freedom to use the correct biological bathroom that has been intended for them, by setting good boundaries, that this is not a high school issue due to the ages of these children. And as they move into the big world after graduating from Pine-Richland, it will need to be addressed later in their lives through the years. Let's continue to keep Pine-Richland School District a beacon of light, as the children have to live with the decisions that we as adults make for them. Thank you.
Yeah, my recommendation to the board is that the focus of this be, at this point, on an informational educational session, that we identify some people who can come in and be able to provide background information to our board, to the administration, to the community who wants to attend.
If I could just clarify, in lieu of the guests that we have had here this evening, and the myself being a parent, and there still seems to be a need to have clarity around the policy.
I heard the comments regarding the letter that I sent, concern over whether it was clear or not. I'm not going to, at this time, talk about whether I think it was clear or not. If I didn't think it was clear, I would not have sent it. Our experience is that sometimes the more you attempt to communicate something, the less clear it becomes.
That letter was shared with the board for our review, so we understood what was being communicated.
Because we don't have a written policy on we just have a letter.
Every single word in the communication was thoughtfully considered. Everybody in this room, those that are here, understood the current practice, or they're here, some of them, to talk about that. A lot of what I heard was, why am I hearing about this now and not a year ago, 2 years ago, or at a different time? Fair criticism. I hear that.
Some people maybe didn't read the whole thing or didn't quite get it.
What I'm feeling uncomfortable with is that perhaps not all the parents or students understand their options.
I don't see the need to send an individual letter to the parents.
So what we're saying, we sent out this letter that every board member had a chance to review and comment on.
Which we did, but that doesn't mean the final version was the version we all necessarily.
So the last two sentences in the first page are crystal clear. We had 2 special announcements in the high school. I think all the options were laid out. I'm fine with it.
The issue I think that we're having, it isn't on clarity, it's the content of the email, the letter. So in my opinion, I don't know about the rest of the parents here, but I don't think another communication of the same message is what we're looking for. It's a reversal going back to what we all assumed was the case. That's the clarity we would like. We absolutely agree that we should have a discussion. No one should be discriminated against, not a single student. Everyone should have the same accommodations and expectation of privacy and respect. No doubt about it. None whatsoever. That's not the issue here. But in the meantime, we would like to see things reversed and put back to where they were prior to 10 days ago when we got this out of the blue. Dr. Miller, you acknowledged this was not communicated, and you took, accountability for that, that we didn't know. Appreciate that. So in the meantime, if we can go back for this several weeks until we have that discussion and decisions are made and a formal policy is adopted and put in place, that would be great, because I, in the meantime, don't want to have this uncertainty that my daughter is getting dressed, showered, or whatever, and a male figure goes into that facility. If you can guarantee me that that's not going to happen, I'm good. But I don't think that you can. I don't think that anyone can. And that absolutely makes me shake, the idea that my 14-year-old daughter could be doing that and an 18-year-old male figure walk into that locker room or whatever it might be because of a poorly executed communication, without our input. That's all I have. Thank you, and thank you.
Just a very, very quick comment, Scott Gagliardi, again, and that was regarding the crystal clear message of the letter that was sent out. I think it was carefully parsed and carefully worded. I do not think it was crystal clear. To back that up, and unfortunately I couldn't pull my emails up from that I'd received from some members who are against this current policy. I got 2 that said to the effect, yes, now we don't have to fight City Hall anymore, to which I had to go back, parse out the significant sentence and resend it to them to clarify to them that nothing had been reversed, and in fact this was saying the policy was the same. So whatever you guys do regarding that message, I obviously have no control, but I can tell you from my limited experience, it was far from crystal clear.
Dr. Miller, you stated that sometimes more communication confuses the issue, and I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around that. I think in the public sector, we call it the voice of the customer, and if the voice of the customer is saying, we're not understanding the email, we're not understanding the email. So although you might think that it's clear, from your point of view, we don't, from our point of view. My last thought would be that just because something is not written in policy doesn't mean that it's not policy. If you're allowing anatomically correct males, biologically correct males to utilize the women's room, then it's a policy that you've put into place, whether that's in writing or not. And I would like to reverse that. I would like to ask you to vote to reverse that tonight.
Meeting is adjourned.